Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now today I'm going to talk about respect, because respect is a fundamental ingredient in all aspects of our interpersonal relationships, but also it plays a big part in our self-development. Now if a man wants to achieve the respect of his peers and those around him, there are some qualities which you need to display which will help that to happen. Today, I am going to share with you 5 strategies which you can put in place around your life which will help you earn the respect of those in your personal orbit. One of the most powerful ways to engender respect amongst the people that you encounter is to consistently demonstrate integrity in all of your actions and all of your decisions. The best way to do this is to build your own moral code and then to live your life by those values, because people will recognize somebody who has a strong moral compass and they will feel more comfortable following and becoming involved in any aspects of your life which overlap with theirs. Remember, integrity is the foundation by which respect is built. Now, to give you an example of how integrity can be leveraged to build the respect of others, I'm going to take you back to 1930, when there was a man called Mahatma Gandhi, better known to us today as the Mahatma. Now, he was a man who had unswerving personal principles, and his word was his bond. Now in 1930, he took part in a 240-mile march to the Arabian Sea to protest the British monopoly on salt in India. The British taxed salt and they controlled its production, which was fundamentally important to Indian ordinary people. It really affected their lives. So as part of this protest march, Mahatma Gandhi wrote to the Viceroy of India and told him that it was his intention to break the rules. However, he was going to do so peacefully. The resulting march was a remarkable demonstration of peaceful protest, despite the many hurdles and challenges which the protesters faced, which did include harassment, arrest and violence from the British-controlled police forces at the time. However, Mahatma Gandhi stood true to his principles of peaceful protest. However, Gandhi's adherence to his non-violent protest principles stood solidly, and it garnered global attention, and it became a significant turning point in the dialogue towards Indian independence eventually. The Salt March protest by Gandhi and his followers set the stage for a change in the way that negotiations were to take place between the British authorities and people seeking Indian independence. And eventually that came to pass. And it was because that Mahatma Gandhi was able to show his integrity and his commitment to his goal. Now, my next strategy in boosting the respect which you receive in life is your ability to communicate. Because if you're going to win the respect of people, you have to be able to communicate with them with clarity, with confidence, and with authenticity. These are really important things. And to be able to do that, you must be prepared to listen to the perspectives of other people, to get their take on things, to understand both sides of any story. Then you must be able to articulate your point with clarity and, above all, with absolute passion, to get your side of the story across to others, to gain their respect. Now, I'm going to give you an example again from history of somebody who was a master of communication in difficult situations. I'm going to take you back to 1940, the Second World War, and this country, the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Now in 1940, this country was involved in a conflict with Nazi Germany. In fact, it was probably the darkest of all times in the history of my nation, because all of Europe had fallen to the forces of Nazi Germany, and the British Army had suffered a crushing defeat in its attempt to stop the onslaught of the enemy. So much so that more than 300,000 British soldiers had to scurry across the English Channel, leaving behind all of their weapons, their tanks, their artillery, their trucks, their guns, everything. The country was facing devastation. The population was absolutely terrified. And Winston Churchill had to use his communication skills to instill confidence in people. So he gave an address to Parliament. It's now considered to be a very historic speech, which has become known as the "We will fight them on the beaches" speech, in which he had to convey some very important messages to the population. Firstly, he had to tell them about this devastating military disaster. He couldn't pull any punches. He had to tell it like it was. Then he had to make people aware that there was a likelihood that there was going to be an invasion. Can you imagine how this must have felt? This nation, at that time, the sort of premium nation in the largest empire that the human experience has ever encountered, the British Empire, looks like it's about to fall to an enemy force. He had to give that speech, but at the same time, he also had to convey to people his unswerving belief that victory would come eventually. And he did so. He gave his speech saying that we will never surrender. We will fight them on the beaches. Those famous words which echo through the annals of history today. But could you imagine hearing those words and receiving comfort from it? And having the belief that with steadfastness and courage, victory could be achieved. In so doing, Churchill was able to steady the nerves of a fearful nation and set them to work in what would eventually come to pass as probably the greatest victory this country and its allies has ever seen. Now, my third strategy in building more respect in the world in which you live is to demonstrate your competence and your effectiveness in the things that you do. People respect others who are experts, who are good at what they undertake, be that their hobbies, their relationships, their professional situation. It doesn't matter. If you are good at what you do, you will win the respect of those around you who also follow that path. So it's really important that you constantly strive to be the best version of yourself in those fields of endeavour. Your work, your hobbies, your friendships, your relationships, even a project that you're doing right now. Learn as much as you can about it. Be as good as you can in the tasks that you're asked to undertake. And when you've done so, people will look up to you with respect because they will see that you have competence, you have expertise, you have commitment to being the best version of you in the task that you're undertaking. Now that is how you win respect. Now my next strategy around building more respect is to show compassion and empathy for people, because respect grows in the fertile soil of compassion. Believe me, it's been shown time and time again. If you can understand the challenges and the tribulations faced by people around you and you show empathy for them, they will come to respect you. And the way to do this is to take an interest in people and show genuine feelings for the situations that they face, even when you don't have to, when it is not your task, when you're not being paid to do so. To show thought and consideration for others, that's where you will win their respect. Now again, I'm going to delve back in history to show you how empathy can change the direction of a whole nation. I'm going to take you back to a man, Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States of America. Now, he led that nation at a time of probably its greatest upheaval during its civil war, where the country seemed destined to tear itself apart. And he sent many men into battle in order to win the day. One of the things he did to show compassion for his soldiers was to visit the wounded soldiers in the military hospital in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. He would go and visit them, but these were not purely ceremonial visits. They were visits where he genuinely showed his sense of understanding and compassion towards the soldiers who fought in his name. He would often sit with them for many hours, entering into many genuine conversations about their families, about the lives they led. He would hold their hands as they were dying. This was not somebody seeking media interest. It was a man showing genuine empathy. He came to see them not just as pawns on the chess table of the war. He saw them as human beings, not soldiers, people with their own stories, their families, their hopes, their fears, their lives stretching out in front of them. And as a consequence of understanding and having more empathy for his soldiers, you can see that the way he governed the war was one of a compassionate man. His compassion was not merely for his own soldiers, but also the soldiers of the opposing Confederate side. And as a consequence of showing compassion, the way that he led after the war, seeking to bring the nation together in rebuilding and a reunification, was tangible. And that was possible because he showed empathy and compassion. And the respect that we have for Abraham Lincoln today stems from those emotions, those abilities which he demonstrated. Now, my final strategy for you is to lead by example and take responsibility for the actions and the decisions that you take on your journey through life. When you make a mistake, acknowledge it, own it, and then take steps to rectify that situation. That is how you will win respect from people around you, not shifting blame or trying to, move the responsibility to somebody else. Leading by example and respecting and accepting responsibility is the greatest way to inspire the respect of people around you. Now again, I'm going to take you back in history to a famous man who made a few mistakes, but ultimately changed his direction, and success was a result. And that is Nelson Mandela. Now today we see Nelson Mandela's legacy as that of a man who led his nation out of the darkness of apartheid into a democratic, free-thinking world. However, at a different stage in history, Nelson Mandela's legacy would have been very differently perceived by people of the day. He embraced armed conflict. In our modern terms, we would have considered him to be a domestic terrorist. However, Nelson Mandela evolved. He changed. He realized that his adherence of violent ways was not going to lead to the success which he sought for his nation. He pivoted. He changed and became more interested in peaceful negotiation, which ultimately was the route to success for him and his nation. In 1993, Nelson Mandela jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize, and he became the first black man to lead his nation as president of a democratic South Africa. It goes to show how you can change. You can go from having one sort of path in life and have that hinge moment where you pivot in an entirely different direction. You accept responsibility for your actions, the decisions that you made in the past, and show that you're ready to change and take a different route. For Nelson Mandela, that is where the success and the wonderful future that led to his country now being democratic and putting behind them the apartheid policies which had held them back for so many generations. Now, in conclusion, today I've offered you some suggestions, some strategies which you can employ in your life to improve the respect that you engender from the people around you. If you put one or two of these in place, you will find some benefits. You will have improved self-esteem, better relationships with people, and undoubtedly better outcomes in the journey which you take towards Chap Nirvana. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, click the subscribe button. If you would like to support the channel, you can just leave a comment, you can drop me an email, you could buy me a coffee, or you could even become a patron. And if you do that, for as little as £3 a month, you can benefit from the additional video content which I produce for my patrons and the special dialogue I have with my patrons, and you will find how to access that in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care. seek respect in your life, and see the benefits that you will obtain. And I will see you again very soon.